What is up, everybody? Let me just make sure that everything is working out good. Yeah, everything seems to be working out. What's up? Welcome to yet another live stream. Today is episode number 83, and we are back to editing videos. My name's Lewis, also known as MrCameraJunkie. If it's your first time here, welcome. And as I always remind everyone, we're to upgrade your skills before your gear. How we doing, everybody? That didn't flow out as normal, but we're just gonna roll with it. As always, if it is your first time here, please make sure to introduce yourself in the chat and let everyone know who you are so that you can get the Camera Junkie welcome. And with that being said, let's go right ahead and check the chat to see who is here. All right, there's my mouse. Perfect. All right, first up we have Scott. Let me check this out. Make that a little bit bigger. That looks good. All right, cool. I'm just bringing down the volume of the music just a little bit more. Let me know how the audio sounds. This is the first time that I'm doing it completely through the Rodecaster Pro. So let me know how's the audio. All right. Okay, back at it. We have Mr. Paul Duncan. How are you doing, sir? Thank you for hanging out. And over here, actually, you know what? Let me do that because I have the music playing through my Mac Mini, but I need to have my chat there up just to make sure that everything's good. All right. I have so many monitors today because of the editing, but we'll get to that. All right. We also have Luis Nano, Tech for Your Needs, saying hello, folks. Dr. Elo, how you doing, sir? And we also have Caleb in the house. Says, I would love to hear more about Descript. Okay, that's cool. We're going to get into that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened last week and how things are going to be working this week. I was going to do everything on the Mac Mini, but a vital part of the editing so that I can show you is being done through the Stream Deck. So I needed that for both the editing and for the live stream. So I just made sure that everything's running here, but we're going to get to that once we get to it. Oh, we also have Lost stopping by saying happy Saturday to everyone. Tony's in the house. How you doing, bro? Saying Dímelo, Luis. And I love that everybody's saying what's up to each other. We also have Carlos in the house. It says, thanks for doing this. Using these tools together is amazing. It is amazing. It's a nice combination. And if you read the description, you will also know that that it's going to be a non-destructive way that we're going to apply the edits from Descript over into Final Cut Pro. So, okay, let's see here. Melanie's also saying hello. How are you? Happy Saturday, she's saying to everyone. He says I'm the other way around. Upgrading my gear before my skills. Just make sure that the gear that you get allows you to maximize your skills, because there's nothing bad about, you know, getting gear that you want, because if it's something that will inspire you to create, then I'm all for it. But I'm also like really proud of myself because I have been for a while, and now I have these A6100s and using these cameras for 3 years and they still look amazing. So very happy with my setup. But with that being said, I do want to remind you that if you haven't done so already, please do so and just hit that like button. Do that. It will be highly appreciated. And with that being said, we're going to get right into it. Okay. Hey, thanks, Nano. Yeah, he said hit the like button. Boom, just like that. Okay. Last week, I had a little bit of issue with both the script and the rendering out of the file. It took a really long time to render out this file, and after the stream I shut everything down, rebooted, and just kind of like got everything the way that it should have been, and I was able to render that file like within 10 minutes. So that's kind of like the expectancy of the computer, but maybe I'll put out, you know, like the exact numbers in the future of how long it took me. But it was a 40-minute file that shouldn't have taken that long. But with that being said, if you want to know exactly how I used the audio to create that file, that is in last week's live stream, so you can get that information there. And now I have that file in its entirety, and we're going to continue to edit with that. Now, if this were to be the first file that you have, like this is the only file that you have to deal with, then you wouldn't have to go through the steps that we did last week. But because I pulled it from a live stream, I had to fix the audio, and now we're going to use that file that is already completed into Descript. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to that scene. No, that's not it. That's it. There we go. Boom. That was an old scene. I need to delete that. Reminder to self. Okay. So here we are, and the first thing that I'm going to do is obviously open up Descript. And it probably opened on this side. Yep. Okay, we're gonna go home, and we're gonna create a new file, new project. Boom. Now that we have the new project, we're gonna name this live edit. And we're going to create the project. Boom. That's how easy it is, and that's how easy it was supposed to be last week, which we could all, you know, account that it didn't go that smoothly. Okay. So now right here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull in the file that we created, the one that we edited, or in whatever case, the original file that you are going to edit. Perfect. All right. And now we're adding that file to Descript. And once Descript finishes uploading it and rendering it, what will happen is that it will start transcribing it. Okay. Am I in there? No. But I'll just put myself MCJ. That's the speaker, and we're done. All right, and now it's preparing the file. We go over here and close a couple of folders. Okay. And this is the part where, like, this is where Descript is doing its magic. It's transcribing, it's taking the entire file, reading it out, it's writing out the entire script of it. But even though that at this moment it is transcribing, I'm only using it so that I can create what is called an XML file. And that XML file is what we're going to be using over into Final Cut Pro, and that's the non-destructive aspect. What it does is that all of the edits that we are going to apply on this end here in this script will actually be applied over in a manner that is not a final baked in hard cut. So even though the script isn't perfect, we allow it to work its magic and make the most of the file, but at the same time we also know its limitations. So instead of just creating a file with everything baked in directly from the script, I'll be able to manipulate like the ins and outs of each cut in Final Cut Pro. Come on, Descript. Like I said, it's a 40-minute file. There we go. Perfect. All right, so as you can see right now, that it's pretty much has like the everything that's said in this video file. You can go and use Descript at this moment and start creating edits, correcting your speech, and if you have the overdub feature, you could even correct missayings, so to speak. Like if you meant to say 5500 and you said 5400, you'd be able to correct yourself on the fly. But that's not how I use it in this aspect. So what I do is first I go to this little wrench right here, which I'm trying to highlight, and we're going to add or apply the shorten word gaps. And right here on the left is going to show you all the word gaps that it already found. So right here we can go shorten by 0 seconds or whatever, but it's just going to remove them completely. So you can go and start selecting each one and it will go in sequence, but there are a lot, as you can see here. So what I do is I just hit apply to all, and now that took 262 word gaps out of that file. That's it. So that's magic of Descript. I'm gonna go right back to that same wrench now, and if you want, you could remove filler words. At this point, you could do the same exact thing and remove the filler words. Those are ums, as, us, things that you wouldn't want. That's really good for repurposing of a live stream that you know that you would have a lot of those in there. I think I was pretty good with my recording because I was reading off script. So for that reason, I'm not gonna apply that, but that would be the next step depending on the type of content that you're editing in this aspect. But now that those word gaps have been shortened, the next step is to basically export the XML file so that we can use it in Final Cut Pro. We're gonna go right over here to where it says share, and we're gonna click on that, and it will give us a variety of options. We're gonna click on the export tab, and we're gonna go directly down to says timeline export for Final Cut Pro. This also works for Adobe Audition, Premiere, and I believe there's other ones. As you can see, this one says Pro Tools, Logic. There's a variety of different ones. I thought I had saw like even DaVinci Resolve, but I don't see it now. They're constantly updating, but that's what we'd be doing. So once again, export Final Cut Pro, and now what it's going to do is that it's going to export the XML file, which we're going to use, and a copy of the actual main file. In my experience, when I've said do not include the export settings, so to speak, or the actually that's different. That actually says include media files and export. Yeah, like the actual media. Okay, so they just changed the verbiage. All these updates. Anyway. So basically, we're going to make a copy of the original file that I threw into Descript in a folder with the XML file. The reason why I make sure that this is checked off is because anytime that I've had it unchecked, the XML is unsuccessful when I try to transfer it or open it up into Final Cut Pro. So just note that, make sure that it's there. Okay, now we're being asked to where we're gonna place this file. I'm gonna throw this right into my SSK, my 2 terabyte external hard drive, and I'm gonna hit export, and it's exporting the timeline. It's basically gonna take the amount of time to copy over the same file that I threw onto it. So basically it's gonna copy over another 6 gigabyte file that it took from my folder over into Descript, and now it's into the folder that's on my SSD. The reason why I do this as well is because each point I'm creating a new backup of this same file. So originally I have the original file, I have my first backup on Descript, and then I'll be making my second backup in Final Cut Pro. All right. Now that we have that, we're basically done with Descript for now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quit Descript. And I'm going to go ahead and open Final Cut Pro. Oh. Okay, perfect. It opened up on this side. I'm just going to create a new one to show everyone the whole entire process. So we're going to create a new file. I do all of my work off that same SSK to terabyte SSD external. So that's a M.2 drive. So I'm going to go ahead and do live edit. I thought it would allow me to overwrite it, but guess not. Okay, we're going to hit save. Okay, and now we've just created our first like library or project here in Final Cut Pro. Like I mentioned before, this to me when I first started using Final Cut Pro wasn't as intuitive as maybe some other programs that allow you to exactly drag and drop, but this wasn't one of them. But in this case, we really don't have to create a project because that's already been created through the XML file in Descript. So now that we've just created our initial edit, our initial library, we're gonna go up to File, and we're gonna import an XML file. And now we're just gonna locate the file that we created, which was our live edit. And right here we can see our live edit XML for Final Cut Pro. We're gonna select it and import. And within seconds, we've taken all of the edits that were created in Descript and now have applied it to this project. And this project lives within this library here, the live edit. This is the one that we created before. You can leave it there unless you are importing some more data. This might get a little confusing. You can just remove it by deleting it. Just exiting that to the trash because it's empty. That way we're just trying to keep it as clean as possible. And once again, we're left with our smart collections and our live edit. And what we're going to do now is double click on this project, and magically it appears on the timeline. All right. So let me check in the chat real quick just to make sure that everybody's following along. If everything is sounding good and everybody is getting some value, give me a thumbs up in the chat so that I know that everything is going good. Hi, Shelly. How are you? Says 10 viewers and only 5 likes. Come on, people. Yeah, all right. Thank you. I appreciate you, Shelly. All right, so hold on. Let's go back to Final Cut. There we go. All right. Now, something that Descript does is that all of the transcription that... Thanks, Paul. I saw the thumbs up. Appreciate you. All the transcription that was created through Descript is also added here, and you can see it on the timeline there, that it's everything that's written is there as a burnt in caption. I don't use these captions at all, and if I were to caption it, I would do it through Descript at the final end of the project when I have the final file, so that I only have to go in there to create one SRT file so that it has closed captions on the YouTube upload. So what I do is I'm going to highlight all of the captions that are writing on top, and I'm just going to hit Command X to get rid of them completely. All right, let me get some water. Ooh. All right. Excuse me. Okay, so now, yeah, you guys should be hearing the scrubbing. So if I were to hit play, Okay, so we have our file, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to eliminate all of the, like, just the main chunks that we're not going to use, so that we're left with our talking head portion. And as always, we start at the beginning. Okay, you see, that was junk, so we just, I'm gonna expand the timeline now. Oh, and let me show you a couple of things about Final Cut Pro for those of you who could be new to this. Right here on the right hand side, we have a lot of our control. So this panel here on the right hand side is our inspector window. So that's going to give us all the information, all of the like effects and all of the adjustments that you're going to do throughout the entire program of Final Cut Pro is going to be controlled through that window there. As you can see, it has a couple of different options or tabs on top, from the video file to the coloring to the audio. Everything's done through the inspector, so it's trying to centralize all of the information there. Now, right underneath here, you have like these same types of toggles for excuse me, for what's going on in the timeline. So as I scrub through, you'll hear the audio, but it kind of gets annoying when you're scrubbing through to constantly hear like that chattering in the background. So if you want to get rid of that, right here, you're able to just click off like the sound levels. And now as you're scrubbing, you won't hear anything at all, to make, you know, your editing experience a little bit easier. And at the same time, you still hear the audio when you press play to actually listen to what you're editing. It's just not doing it while you're scrubbing through the timeline. This other feature here, these two little clicks here, is what everybody kind of gets confused with Final Cut Pro, which is the magnetic timeline. And that is always in play when it comes to the main aspect of your timeline, of your edit. But what snapping does is that it takes your playhead and snaps to every cut so that it's perfectly in line. That also tends to cut each file to a specific frame instead of allowing you to freehand to get the audio correct or the edit correct. So this is also something that I'm constantly turning on and off depending on how I'm going to utilize my edit. So snapping is something that you should be very aware. For the beginning aspect of this, I will be turning both of those features off. And then to finalize on this little aspect here is this little film strip right next to it, which you can see says change the appearance of the clips in the timeline. And that's very important, because on top of having the inspector window here, we have our viewer, we have our our data section where we have our files and where we'll be able to look up special effects and different things throughout Final Cut Pro. I don't need to see a representation picture of what's being demonstrated above in the timeline as well. So the options will be found in this film strip here. And the one that I use is just the audio display only, because we're editing through audio. We don't need to see the clip in every single little aspect of the timeline, because we're seeing what's actually happening in the viewer just above. Excuse me. All right. With that, another thing is how big you want to see it. So this tab allows you to adjust the timeline zoom level. And the zoom level has to do with how granular you can get into the edit, or how tight you can bring everything in. So if you ever expand very wide on your timeline, something that I mentioned last week, but I'll reiterate, is the shortcut Shift Z, which will bring everything back to the size of your timeline from beginning to end here. boom, boom. It will bring it so that it's just there. But going right back to it, the slider underneath controls the height of these files. So when we're dealing with audio, I like to get nice tall levels so that we can see the spikes and the peaks and the valleys in the WAV file. It's gonna be easier for us to edit so that we know when a word is finishing and ending so that we can cut to it. And then if like in later parts of the editing, when you're adding b-roll and things like that, you can come to the same position to just lower it down so that you can see how many files you have stacked on top, because when they're this tall and you start stacking them on top of each other, your timeline gets really, really tall. And you just try to keep everything within the range where you could understand it. So you will do that to your liking on how you edit. But as well as that, these are options that I have within my Stream Deck. Let me move this over to the side here, that allow me to adjust the size, and you'll be seeing me go in and out of the edits. So with that being said, let's go ahead. And now we're going to be listening to the edit. We're going to bring the playhead to the beginning. We're going to go ahead and listen. And if it's stuff that is like me talking before I get into the meat of it, I'm just going to delete that right away. And once I start speaking or like reciting the edit, that's when I will get more granular and talk my way through it. But now we just need to get to it. And like Mr. Moderator said here as well, let me see if I can get to that. Please put a Q colon in front of any questions that you might have. So once I get through this next phase, I'll be able to answer those. All right. And I think everything's running smoothly right now. So we're just going to keep it rolling. Okay. Okay. We can listen to this in real time, but we're always trying to make the most of our time. So another thing that you can do is that once you press like spacebar, which is play pause on Final Cut Pro, you could also press the letters K and L for double speed or just increase speed, sort of like fast forward speed on either direction. So K will bring it backwards, and the more you press it, the faster, like the more it will increase in speed. And the same with the L key. But I usually only go 2 times so that it's still audible, a little bit chipmunk, but you'll still be able to understand what's being said. The crazy thing is that once you've edited enough, you tend to realize that you can like listen to people's entire conversations at 2 times speed, and your brain like at first might think like that's really fast, and within minutes your brain catches up to the speed of the audio that you're listening to. Hey Kim, how you doing? Thanks for stopping by, and I appreciate you taking the time. It's been a while. Haven't seen you around, but it's really nice to have you here. All right, let me get back to it. I also have a shortcut with okay, so you can see, actually, I wasn't trying to put a marker, I was trying to pause there. Okay, I can see that I started right here in between, and I'm going to expand. Actually, I think my head is covering this aspect right now, so let me go ahead and try to move this. Let me see. Yep. I'm like, ugh. All right. Let me go ahead and unlock this scene. And I'm going to move myself over here, and I'm gonna. All right. There we go. Okay, now you guys could see more of what I'm actually doing. Okay, back to it. Okay, right here in this clip is where I actually start talking, and I realize that I start right in the middle of this gap. So I'm just gonna press play. Okay, so you see, welcome to Ecamm from scratch, starts right there. And on the keyboard, you can hit Command B, which is the cut option. And that's what that looks like there. Whenever you cut something in Final Cut Pro, you will see these dotted little lines. These dotted little lines means that it's a cut, but there has been no adjustment made, meaning that there has been nothing taken or added away, and that is the same way that the file was originally. But what this does is that, as you can see, it'll just continue to float and there will be no difference. But if I have snapping on, now that becomes a point where my playhead could actually snap too, because I've created a cut there. But the reason why I bring this up is because there will be times throughout your edit, because the Descript doesn't get things correct 100%, that you'll notice that they've cut out a word, or like it's missing something, right? And if it is because it thought that it was a filler word, you're gonna have to bring it back. And whenever you see that little dotted line come up on your timeline when you're bringing something back, that lets you know that that is the original file and that's what is there. And that's the awesome part of this type of editing with the XML, which is, even though all of these cuts are applied, what I can do is at the edge of each one, like, let me listen here. As I'm explaining, I am able to take away or add to that file. So as you can see that this literally just shortened this word gap, because that's all we asked Descript to do. So now, if I wanted to bring back that word gap, I am able to line this up, and right there, I once again get the little perforated dots. So that lets me know that that word gap has now been reestablished, and that is what the original file looked like. But we don't want that. We want to remove the word gaps in this case. So I will go and I will do Command Z, which is, you know, Command Z on all the Macs, until I bring back the original edit the way that I had it. So that's another convenience of Macs and all these advanced NLEs, which is that if you were to create an error and you're like, oh man, I messed up, just know that you could always hit Command Z and take the step back. No harm, no foul. Okay. So now, this is where we start. This is me talking junk. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of shrink this again a bit to show you. And that's where I made my cut. I know that everything here, everything before that, is not going to be used in the video. So right off the bat, now I can just do Command X and get rid of that. And you saw the entire timeline shift because I removed everything from the beginning. This is where a lot of people that are using other types of editors may get confused. But this is one of the awesome features, I feel, of Final Cut Pro, that instead of having to do what is called ripple delete in Premiere and other applications, it's done automatically. So as soon as you delete the file, it brings that, because it kind of knows that you want to start there, and if you didn't, it's so easy to just add something in front of it. That's how it is. So we'll get back to it. So now I'll have my beginning file. And we're gonna double time it. So now okay, so what I'm doing now, even though I explained all of that, What I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna go double time through the edit, and I'm gonna go through a little bit, and as you can see, I have a shortcut which is basically just the M key on the keyboard, which creates a marker, and it adds the marker to the file. So as I'm listening to, everything that has one of these blue markers is basically a removable file, but instead of taking the time to go and highlight each one, as I'm doing it, I just mark it along the way, so that at the end I'm able to just highlight all of the, all of the ones that I put markers on, and delete them in one shot, and then have the timeline do the magnetic thing again, and just once again shrink to the files that I want to manipulate and continue within this edit. But I'm also being conscious of the time, and I want to bring as much value as possible, so I will be progressing through this, but I don't think that I'm gonna do the entire 40 minutes right now, because even if it's 2 times, that's just 20 minutes of going through the timeline. Yeah, so I want to show as much as possible with different types of edits and what I would be doing with further steps down the line. Okay. Another thing about Final Cut, which I just recently learned, which is I used to actually right click here on the actual project and then duplicate a project. So let's say I was going to be doing anything that I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about the edit, if I was gonna remove something completely, but I wasn't sure if that was how I wanted to complete or just finalize that edit. The Command Z of you going backwards on any steps is only per session. So if I were to close Final Cut Pro right now, I would lose all the memory of my Command Z, and when I would reopen it, I would have like a clean slate. So that's something that you need to understand so that you can utilize to your advantage when it comes to any edit. Final Cut Pro has an autosave feature, so if at any moment it were to crash, it will autosave. So that's why I mentioned this, because if it were to crash, which, knock on wood, Final Cut has been flawless, especially on the new M1 machines. But if it were to crash, it is automatically doing a backup, so it will save all of the edits that you've done. But just know that if you had done an edit that you wanted to reverse, it will kind of be baked in. There's ways of getting it back, but it's just tedious. Just FYI. Okay, so let's take the next step. And like I said, we're gonna be listening to this in double time, and anything that's not necessary, I'm just gonna be hitting with the marker. I'm cracking up over here. Okay. Look if you've noticed here. Okay, I'm going to press pause there. If you notice, as the timeline is scrolling, this is something that is infamous for on Final Cut Pro, that it will not keep the audio waveform. So what you see within the width of your timeline is basically what you get at the moment. And as soon as the playhead reaches the end and it starts pulling in from the other side, it will not give you the waveform until you press pause. And you saw that the new machines, they are working fast, but I wish that it will be able to, as you're playing the video, to keep the audio file, as you can see, the waveform visible, so that I can continue to do so. That's for more like in-depth editing, but that's one of the backdraws of Final Cut Pro. But I'm also gonna let you know that I've also tend to use what some people call a disadvantage to an advantage, because when I'm listening to files and I'm re-listening to every cut to see if a microphone is popping, to see if it was like something that I need to fix in the audio edit in between any adjustments, which happen a lot when you're creating cuts in these digital files, then having the non-visible waveform is actually better, because you're just seeing a bunch of stripes and I'm able to concentrate on just the cuts. So as the timeline is progressing, I'm literally looking at just the cuts and not the waveforms to pay attention to see if I hear that popping. But that's getting very granular. All right, once again, I'm gonna hit L. Okay. It looks like right there we're getting started. In all sincerity, I know that I could just do this, and we're just gonna remove that as well. As you can see, I'm just highlighting the ones that, and if you have like a variety, you could actually just hit the command key and just select them in between. So let's say we were keeping that one and not these three, and then this one and not that one. We'll be able to select them individually like such, just by holding down the command. Oh, that was a mistake. This one was, I believe we're supposed to keep. We'll check it as well. And those that we selected, do the same thing. Command X, get rid of them. The magnetic timeline shrinks everything. So now when we hit play, okay, so now you can see right there, there's like a bit of a jump cut, but we're repeating the same exact line, I believe, in the first video. I think the first one sounds good, but as you can see, I'm just stretching out the beginning to make sure that it doesn't clip anything of my words. We're gonna use the first one, so now I'll just clip that out, and as you can see, as soon as I cut it out, it just brings the rest of the timeline closer to me, so I don't have to like go and further down the line. And this is me actually zoomed in, because as you can see, we're still within the first 10 seconds of the video, and this is a 40-minute file right now. Okay. It's not like I'm about to burst laughing in the first one, so I'm still gonna use the first one. I don't know, I think it's more jovial. So this one I'm gonna once again remove. We're gonna see where we're at with the edit. Remove. Okay, so these two are garbage here, but this looks like the next line. Okay, as you can see that right there, This is the awesome part about the Descript XML. It cut the beginning part of that word off, but this is the chunk that we're going to be using. So we're able to zoom in, right, and drag out the part that it cut out. See? So now we bring it there, and now when we play it back, perfect. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and listen to it again. Okay, so it looks like it cut off a lot of what the message was. This is another one that we're just gonna get rid of if you happen to be using. So once again, we're just adding the part that it cut out, and that just took a little bit longer, so I went closer so that it just sounds, because right now if you're paying attention to me, I'm literally just looking at the timeline. So the timeline is where all of my focus is. I'm not looking at myself in the viewer at all, because like I know that these are jump cuts. So if my head was in this motion in this video, like in this clip, and then it just suddenly jumps over, which it could be very jarring to the other side of the frame because of the jump cut. Right now, that's not my concern. My concern is just that the audio flows well, as if it were to be a standalone podcast. You know, strictly the audio is what I'm most like concerned about in this aspect. Once the audio, the message that you're trying to convey is locked in, the rest is easy, because whether it's different, you know, like transitions that you could apply within the program itself to smoothen that out, or you can just completely cover up that entire jarry cut, you know, visual with a J cut, an L cut, or B-roll, which we'll get into further. All right, so now let's listen to how this sounds. Okay, that to me sounds like a natural like breath and flow into the conversation. So we're gonna move on. That's garbage. Boop. Okay, that's cool, because I was just mentioning that, and I was right, because I didn't hear it in the edit. But most likely, I'm just gonna remove that clip there, and if I wanted to hear when Aiden bangs, that's Aiden's banging right there. See? That's what was cut out. So if we listen to it, see, there you go. So now, what's called rippling, right? A ripple cut is basically a command close bracket. Depending on which side of the timeline that you're on, you can either close to your location, which is what we call ripple, like a ripple edit. I have them preset, but the keyboard shortcuts would be command close colon, is it, or close bracket on either side. What this does is that I see that this is an extended period, and this is the sound that we would naturally want to get rid of. So let's say that that's exactly what we want to do. We would listen to the playhead, and right there, that's where I would want to create my cut. So naturally you would think like I would then create a cut there, select the file that we want to get rid of, and then Command X it, right? Command X, yep, it out of there. That works effectively because of the magnetic timeline. But now let me take these steps back, right? Because what I can do as well with no cut there, I'm able to hit that shortcut command, and what it does is that it takes the edit and does all of those steps for me, and we're at the same exact position without taking those 3 steps. So one click allows you to take anything and ripple it to you, but it's only going to ripple from the from its closest cut. So let's say you just started a video file and you have an hour-long file that you're going to start cutting up. If you were to go 5 seconds in and hit the ripple, it will remove all like hour of it, and you only have 5 seconds. So understand. But if you were to have any cuts in between your position and that endpoint, that's where it will ripple from. So it will always ripple from your nearest cut. Hopefully I conveyed that correctly. All right, let's go back to the timeline. See, all of that sounded pretty good. Like, I'm visually seeing that this was cut off a little bit, but that all sounded pretty good, even at the high speed that if I were to just to listen to it normally. Okay. Okay, so I said that I didn't like the way that it sounded. Yeah, I agree. I like stumbled there. Okay, so another way that you can do it, you know, just depending on the different style or how I'm feeling that day, I can just hit play and I just highlight behind it. Okay, so right there, I'm just listening to myself in the edit. These 3 files I'm not going to use, so right away I'll just cut those out, and I like the file that we had here, so that's what we're going to use. See? Now I'm just following. And now, boop. I think there's a cut here. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, look at that. That's a weird little cut here in between. There's no reason to have that there. So I just spotted that. I'm just getting rid of that. Absolutely like unnecessary. So now we're going to shrinkify the timeline so that we can see more of the audio. Okay, and this is where we're at. What? I decided that was the one that I was going to use. Okay, let's see where we're at here. Okay, so you see all of this is not usable. So because I'm not going to be using it, I know that I'm going to start my like talking head aspect right in this line. So I will now use the ripple effect from the other side, and it's going to start from this cut line. But if I were to create another cut line here, then now it's going to start from that aspect. And I would just put my playhead there, hit the ripple, and it rippled from the cut that I created. You're not hearing the sound? So let me know, Paul, if you can or if you cannot. Hearing the Final Cut Pro. You haven't. Oh, so sorry. You're definitely hearing it now. Thank you, thank you. Because I read the first one and it said that we're hearing the sound. Like the one that was repeated. So regardless, you should be able to hear it now. Prices for various quality. There are various prices for various qualities of dedicated webcams. Give me the thumbs up, or if not, you understand? I'll be keeping an eye out. Okay. It will make more sense now that you can hear it, but I digress. All right. Step away to try to not cause that. Okay. So we will continue. There are various. Okay. So we were talking about the ripple effect. This, I'm going to kill that. We're going to kill that. Is a dedicated webcam. There are various prices for various qualities of dedicated webcams. Gonna try that one again. There are various prices for various qualities of dedicated webcams. Okay, because we're keeping that one, I mis-tagged it. I'm just gonna delete that tag, and these two I'm going to remove. So this should flow there. I'm gonna zoom into the timeline, and I'm gonna take this word gap out here. Dedicated webcam. There are various prices for various qualities of dedicated webcams. And that will be the... Yeah, and that is the one that I would use. Okay. So once again, we're gonna shrinkify the timeline. Thank you guys. Thank you for that information. Actually, you know what? This is a good time, because I've been on it for a good 20 minutes. As you can see, we're just about 40 seconds in, but we're getting rid of a lot of things. So the thing that I want to emphasize is that the 40 seconds that we have in the books is like 100% like just about done when it comes to the talking head. You know, when it comes to that audio portion, we are just about there. Okay, so let me check some messages here. Oh, okay, hold on. Universal control, FYI. Only Mac official Apple mice or trackpads will actually allow you to scroll. I love my Logitech MX Master mouse, but once you move over to another computer, the scrolling up and down does not work at all. All right, thanks for all the information, guys. Okay, let me go back, making sure that I don't lose my mouse. Found it. Okay. So let's see if we have any questions here. Thank you, Paul. Yes, if you do want to support, actually, you know what? Let me make sure. But I don't want to take away from the timeline, so I'll put it up there for a little bit. That's the Cash App tag, so if you want to support that, you could just use that and it will take you right to it. Okay. We had Kim saying she's popped by. I'm losing my mouse. Okay, so this is Kombucha popping by. How you doing, John? Thanks for stopping by. Okay. It says nice to see you have the chance to replay. Okay, that's awesome. Everybody's saying hi. Okay, Law has a question. It says, I missed it. What do the markers represent again? They're just a marker. It's me making myself know that that's something that I need to pay attention to. So the markers could be anything and are everything. They are exactly what you want them to be. So there's a lot of times that I use them in sequence. So it, like I said, it really depends on the different types of edits. I've been doing a lot of repurposing of live streams, and when I'm in that aspect, there's certain times where the question or the response that the host is giving is really serving no purpose to the message or the information that's trying to be extracted from that live stream. So I need to make sure that I have the ability to mark that. And the reason why I wouldn't just remove it right away is because when you're dealing with the long form content of a live stream, something that is mentioned in the first 15 minutes could not have could not hold value until maybe the end of the video. Because if it's a question or a comment that was made at the beginning, right now it may seem like, oh, this really didn't serve any purpose. But if later on in that same video they reference that same exact comment and bring it all together, I need to make sure that that part is still in the video so that the back end makes sense. You know, it's almost like writing a script. So in that aspect, instead of deleting it right away, I will literally just put 3 markers in sequence. So instead of just putting 1 marker on that clip, I will mark it 3 times. Maybe there's a variety of different things. You can disable it completely, you know, so that and move it off to the side so that if it's like effectively like removing it, but if you need to put it back, you still have it there and you haven't really lost it. It's just kind of like in timeout. So there's a lot of different options that you can do. So okay, let's see where we are here. It says, are we supposed to be hearing the Final Cut Pro playback? Yeah, that was the whole thing, but I had it on mute, literally on mute from the Rodecaster Pro. So I could hear it in my audio because I'm listening to the master, but I still had the blaring red button. We live and we learn. It was the first time that I was using this. Like, I was planning on bringing all the audio directly from the Mac Mini, which is actually where we're hearing all the music from. So I'm having a lot of fun because the Rodecaster Pro 2 is connected to both my Mac Studio and my Mac Mini, and I am playing Epidemic Sound in the background at full blast, but controlling it through the faders here. And because I'm recording this entire session on the Rodecaster Pro, I'm also getting that multi-track audio so that I can once again have the audio separate, whether I'm doing a sound effect, anything at all, I'll be able to take care of that, you know. So it's just awesome. Also creating just one mix. So now my Ecamm, which is powering this entire live stream, my Ecamm is only getting one audio source. So that whole thing of like me not being able to really reference how high the music is, I don't think really has been an issue for today's live stream because I'm controlling it here on the board and I'm not trying to listen to playback from Ecamm. Okay, Paul has a question. He says, a ripple cut is the same as the J and L cut. No. Actually, you know what? That's a great thing. So let me do that to actually give you a little bit more value. So let's go back to this. Let me see if that we have anything else. Mommy Guide Inc. How are you doing? All right. Okay, so Law says he hears it now. Hi, Gretchen. How are you? Thanks for stopping by. Okay, Dr. Omar has a question. It says, do you use any shortcuts using the Stream Deck? If you do, is your experience with it improved your workflow? Also, is there a turnkey package for FCP shortcuts? Yes and yes. Let me hydrate. I'm going to press this button over here. And this is my overhead camera. So now you're seeing my overhead cam, and this is my Stream Deck. This is my 15 button, and some people prefer the bigger ones, which is cool, right? To each his own, but this has been the game changer for me because of the small size. The bigger ones allow you to have a lot more keys, but you actually would physically have to see them. You kind of have to look at each key, at each button before you press it to make sure that you're not making a mistake, because you have 32 on a pretty big board. This small one has allowed me to cater it to my hands. So as you can see, my hand just sits right above it, and I usually just put my thumb right on the corner as my guide. This right here allows me to know where all 15 keys are without having to look. So while I'm editing and I'm explaining to you the way that I've utilized it most, which I'm going to show you right now, I'm going to leave the overhead cam. I'm going to click on Final Cut Pro. Where's my mouse? Okay. And what you're seeing is that it automatically switched to my Final Cut Pro profile. And this Final Cut Pro profile is absolutely everything. Now, this is set up to my liking because I created the keyboard shortcuts into just hotkeys for each one of the actions that I wanted it to do. But there are there is a, what is it called? You know what? I'm just gonna open it up here. Configure Stream Deck, because you guys can see this. Oh, I think it's on the other side. It is. Let me grab it. Okay, bring it right here. Oh no, we're still in the overhead shot. Sorry, because I can't see Ecamm right now. Fail. Let me close this out so that I can use this. There we go. All right. There we go. Let's switch back to the edit scene. Perfect. Okay, now we're back. Okay, right here, I'm going to go and I'm going to hit Configure Stream Deck. This is what we're seeing with my profile that's Ecamm Live, but automatically when I go into Final Cut Pro, this is what pops up. I have these set up there, and they're just hotkeys for what I'm using when it comes to the keyboard shortcuts. And this is how easy it is. And the word that I was trying to remember was plugins. And that, yes, this is where you have the Stream Deck plugins. And as I scroll down, you'll be able to see that you can go into the Stream Deck store. So if you're not familiar with this, that's where this little icon is, the little colorful keys with the plus. You can click that, and let me see, it opened up over here as well. And you're able to get into the plugins. This is the Stream Deck store, and the plugins for Final Cut Pro, for DaVinci Resolve, and a bunch of others that are just the plug and play features that allow you to have it there, including for Ecamm, are free and easily installed there. You also have music that you can use, and the way that you're able to use this music without it being copyrighted is by actually going into the information and setting up, how was it? You needed to, is it here in the settings? Yes, in the settings you go into your account and you can see it has my MrCameraJunkie channel. So because I was able to add that profile in there, anything that I use as far as the audio that I can download from the Stream Deck store, I hit it again. Did it open? Oh, no. There we go. Anything that you would download here as far as music or sound effects that you can utilize through your Stream Deck will be copyright free, and you wouldn't have any issues at all. Okay, so the plugins are there. That's how you would go ahead and install them, and you have them for Final Cut Pro, everything through the Stream Deck. Even though they are there, I basically just created, as you can see, the shortcuts. So this is just a hotkey. That's the space bar. The marker is just the letter M because those are just the Final Cut Pro shortcuts. And that's just basic. So I took the shortcuts instead of having to do multiple, you know, whether it's like Shift B for blade, right? As you can see, or Command B, I'm sorry. Command B for the cut feature. I just added that as a hotkey. But the most vital thing, which I'm gonna go once again and go to my overhead cam, is that once I'm in the Final Cut Pro, these are just set up for my hand. So as you can see, blade, ripple cuts, play, pause. This is like a replay feature for the last edit that I've done. This brings back, this opens up the timeline or zooms in. This zooms out timeline or anything at all. The snapping that I had mentioned prior, this snapping is it's on and off there because I use it that much. The Shift Z keyboard shortcut is set there to fit to screen so that whenever I click it in Final Cut Pro, it will shrink my timeline. And this little button here is a hotkey that I also set up myself, which is basically it takes the play, it will pause it, and then hit the double time speed so that we can listen to the audio in double time. So instead of having to go back to my keyboard, like I dislike, as you've noticed, going back to my keyboard for the shortcuts just to hit L twice to speed up the audio, that aspect is done through one hotkey where I could just literally click it,
and that will be the thing I use. No matter which
and it automatically starts there. So if I were to pause it and I'll just click it, all right. Now, to answer Paul's question about the J cuts and the L cuts, that has to do with certain aspects. So let's see if any of the cuts that we did initially could look a little funky in between the transitions so that I can better explain a J cut or an L cut.
Welcome to Ecamm from Scratch. Welcome to Ecamm from Scratch. In the first video, we went over downloading and installing Ecamm to your computer. And in this video, we will be
that was kind of like a weird jump, right? But
connecting your camera. If you happen to be using Ecamm on a laptop, if this is the camera that you're going to use, then you're all set. And you can move on to the next step, installing your microphone. Laptops have webcams.
That was the funkiest one.
In the first video, we went over downloading and installing Ecamm to your computer. And in this video, we will be connecting.
That's gonna be the edit of choice. So we're gonna zoom into it, okay? And as we scroll, we see that there's like a change in my head location. So like I'm just stepped back a little bit, but just watching it through,
and in
you
this
kind of
video,
see the jump a little bit,
your...
you know, like little extra, so to speak. So that's gonna be our guinea pig for this aspect. So there we go. Now the J cut and the L cut have to do with the shape of the letters J and L. So visually in this edit, it looks a bit jarring, but I believe that if we listen to it, it sounds good. You know, like the audio sounds good.
Ecamm to your computer. And in this video, we to your computer. And in this video, we will be...
It's got like a nice rhythm to it, you know, like a nice space. And in this video, we continue. So we don't like the visual, but the audio is good. So if we had done the entire edit, and this is just hypothetical, we've completed the entire edit, we would actually export the audio file and start working with the audio file to create a mastered talking head portion. Once we have that file, right, and we've worked it through Alphonic, through Levelator, through a variety of different applications to level out your audio, which means your volume isn't going to change or fluctuate, because it really sucks when you're listening to someone and you've set the volume and then they blast music and the volume of the music is so high that then you're gonna have to bring it back down, and we're back from commercial break, and then you have to bring the volume back up because they sound very soft but their music is very loud. All that's taken care of through leveling your audio. Once you've completed that leveling of your audio, you will have that audio file, which will be identical to your edit. And what you would do is that you would take all of the audio from these and just basically slam them. You would just slam them down so that when this is playing, you hear nothing. And then the file that we just bring in that we will put underneath this will represent all the audio that you hear, and that will have your mastered talking head bit. So let me go ahead and undo that aspect. Because we don't have that file there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these files, right? And I'm going to right click on them and I'm going to detach the audio. Effectively doing the same thing, but in like the actual edit, we would want what's sitting underneath here to not be the file that came with the video, but actually be the one that we've already mastered. But in this case, because it sounds good, it's going to represent our mastered audio file. So now we've gotten to the point in the edits where we have that audio crisp and clean, and now we're going over it and making sure that everything matches as far as lip sync, so on and so forth. And if the lip sync were to be incorrect, you'd be able to adjust it here by moving the visuals to match the audio, because the audio is rock solid. But in this case, we have the audio rock solid,
and in this video,
and we're gonna try to change that out. So what we can do at this moment, okay, and this is where it could get a little bit tricky, so thank you for asking this question, Paul, is that if you wanted to extend this cut and move it over here to overlap the actual point of where the cut in the audio exists, is where the letters J and L come into play. Because as they sit on top of each other, and I'm going to turn on snapping so that you can see that it just snaps together, right? They are in unison because the audio is matching the same file as the visual, but we're going to adjust it. What we can do is we will drag the visual out, as you can see, and I'm still smiling. It automatically creates a split screen, and you can see that I start by an open mouth talking on the right hand side, but I'm still doing the smile and hold method that I had mentioned before. So I'm holding the smile, and I got a couple of seconds after I finish speaking to hold that smile. So what that allows me to do is that it allows me to drag this over here, right? And then effectively what I'm going to do is now shorten the other side. Come on, just bring it to me. And now as soon as we've lengthened the top clip where I'm holding the smile, I've shortened the bottom one. I've changed that line. This is what we call a J cut. Because if you're looking at the position here, where it's at, it starts here, it goes all the way down, but then to mediate, it moves to the left, kind of making the shape of the letter J. If you were to move this in the opposite direction, where you're actually seeing visuals before the audio catches up to it, that's what you call the L cut, because it cuts in the opposite direction. But Final Cut Pro, even though it's using the magnetic timeline that allows you to do these J cuts fairly easy, has an even easier way of doing it. You can totally press the letter T almost for transition and adjust the transitions on the fly. You can select it, and once you select it, your playhead now turns into this little motion. And what you do is that you're actually selecting both clips at the same time. And this makes J cuts or L cuts even easier, because you can just clip it or click it and drag. And what you're doing is that you're dragging both files together. So as you can see, this is the center line of the clip. If we were to drag the video clip to the left, it now creates that L type of motion, and you will see the effect there. So we can go ahead and play it
to your computer. And in this video,
You saw the cut while we were still listening to the word computer. That is incorrect, right? It's visually jarring because you're hearing another word, but you're still like you're seeing motion that's really not necessary. That's why the smile and hold method actually works. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna drag it to the opposite and bring it over here. And now this is going to be a lot more pleasing to the eye because I'm going to hold that smile for like just a split second and the audio is going to kick in. And by the time that the visuals apply, they will be synchronized because the audio was never touched. Hopefully that is a good explanation of a J and L cut when it comes to the visuals here. And now let's see what that looks like.
Installing Ecamm to your computer. And in this video, we will be connecting.
See, we're already hearing. And in this video, even though I'm still holding the smile,
Your computer. And in this video,
and now it's not so jarring because the position of my head is more or less where I was at. So now we're hearing it before we see it. And if we want to smoothen this out even more, we can go here and just add a simple transition of a cross dissolve. And we're going to apply it right over that same transition that we just created and that we adjusted. What I like to do is that you have the ability to create or like to shorten or expand the transition just by clicking and dragging the edges there. In this case, I want a quick, simple transition so that it almost doesn't look like it's there at all. So I take that and I make it as small as possible. And even though like we're zoomed in because this is just within the first 10 seconds, you will see the difference of what the edit looks like. I will now hit the letter A to bring it back to just a standard mouse cursor. But here's also another tip. If you don't want to hit the letter T to totally convert it to just doing the transitions, while you are using your standard mouse, you can just press and hold the letter T and utilize that same type of editing feature. And as soon as you let go of the letter T, it goes back to your standard mouse. So that's just a couple of tips, and you can do that with pretty much any shortcut, the range finder tool or anything like that. If you just wanted to do the range, you can just press R for the time moment, find the range, and once you let go of that shortcut, so to speak, or that command, it will then just revert back to the standard. But let's go ahead and take a look at it.
loading and installing Ecamm to your computer. And in this video, we will be connecting.
And that is a smoothened out, cross dissolved J cut. And that looks good. So that is pretty much something that I will leave like that because I already know that this is something that I will be addressing on that edit. So that's something that I will leave. If at this point, right, for whatever reason, every maneuvering, every little try to finessing that I'm trying to do to that cut, right? It sounds great, but I can't get the visuals to mix in good, right? And you're just not satisfied with it. Always remember that you can take a small piece of B-roll and literally just throw it right on top, almost like I'm just going to use a standard custom block, right? Something of that length. And this is just a black block over it. Actually, let me see if I could change the opacity on it. No. Well, maybe. No, it's just changing the color. Anyway. Right there.
Ecamm to your computer. And
anything
in this
that would
video,
be footage
we will be
would basically
connecting
be covering that section. You know, you could just adjust it to size. And hypothetically, this would be a piece of B-roll footage that you either shot yourself or something that you downloaded through like an Envato Elements or anything of that sort. You would then be able to just mask your
Ecamm
edit
to
that
your
way.
computer. And in
But
this
just know
video,
that the
we will be
audio
connecting
is
your
the
cam.
one thing that's going to be your anchor throughout your video edit, and that's what's going to take it together. So I've been at it for an hour and a half. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to do it in this manner right? And what I'm going to do is basically show you right off the bat. I'm just going to continue to hit Command Z until I bring back the audio. So now effectively nothing is done. I'm now hitting the shortcut Shift Z, which brings everything in. And as you can see, we're just about 40 minutes in. So my plan is that I'm going to complete the edit in this form up to what we've covered so far. And next week, we're going to jump right back into it to show you how I would be doing the audio, extracting that and bringing it back in and adjusting all of those things. Because I already demonstrated how I'd be fixing minor edits in between that aspect, the one thing that I will actually, you know what? Let me do that right now. Yeah. Because it has to do with the audio. Actually, you know what? I'll do it next week. Yeah. I'll do it next week because we're going to get into the audio aspect of like extracting it and fixing up the files, because it's just something that's so simple through Final Cut Pro that is what allows me to make sure that in between every cut, you don't hear a rough popping sound like that. Digital edit of that gets rid of all of that. I wish there was a way for me to just make it a shortcut. I haven't figured that out, but what I do works effectively, and we'll be getting into that next week. I will ask you right now, while I'm gonna go back into the comments, if you haven't done so already, please make sure that you hit that like button. It's highly appreciated, and it goes a long way. If you have any last minute questions, please put a Q in them as I get to them. And yeah, let's go ahead and do that before we sign off. I haven't forgotten the city's gone. Before I saw it, but I appreciate it, John. So yes, I'll be getting to that because it's also in the same thing, but let me get back to the chat. See where you guys are here. Okay, so we can hear me. So Gretchen, Final Cut Pro shortcuts. Oh yeah, that's where I left it. Fell into that tangent. Okay, Laura's here. How you doing, Laura? Thanks for stopping by. All right. Says welcome to the RCP2 Gotcha Club. Yep, it got me. Okay, hey Kevin, how you doing, bro? All right. Yes, the 15 button is my favorite because in this aspect, the way that I'm like looking at you on screen right now is the same way that I edit my videos. I have my hands down. I have my MX Master with the little scroll wheel that allows me to move side to side on the timeline. Ideal. That with the Stream Deck and all the shortcuts, man, I hot butter these edits sometimes. The thing is, when it comes to the repurposing of live streams, it's time consuming because you have to listen to the conversation and make sense of it and make sure that you take off anything that's fat, but make sure that you leave all the meaty parts, all the goodness. Oh, Rob is in the house. Dude, thanks for stopping by. Yeah. It's like, what's up, Paul? I'm not sure. Is this the first time you stopped by one of my live streams? It might be, and if it isn't, I can't recall, but I really am glad to see you here, bro. Okay, so Kevin's telling everyone to remember to hit the like button. He also says, I love flow transition to mask those J and L cuts. Yes, I was going to mention that next week because flow is one that I also like. But flow, I actually use it more like an FX. So that's actually getting a little bit more advanced because how it kind of morphs. You can take the same type of shot over and over again with, you know, changing the devices and allowing like the computing power of this program to just like morph it almost like that Michael Jackson music video from back in the day. Gretchen says, I like Hyperspeed Lewis. Then you love me in person. let me stop playing. Yeah, Thank you, Paul, for asking which link that they're looking for. I appreciate it. Says the T trick is super nice. Yeah, and it works with any of them as well. So any of these things that you can use through Final Cut Pro, the fact that you can just like press it and hold it down and it will be temporary is really dope. But when you set up your process to saying like, okay, now I'm gonna go and look at the transitions, it's really easy to just hit the T and just go through the timeline, just like moving like little J and L cuts here and there. Okay, so he says it was a great session. I think so. It felt good, you know, like compared to last week where I was finding like roadblocks and all throughout the way. I really felt like we were able to get through what would be an edit, you know? So these were a lot of great steps, especially the fact that the script, it actually worked today. So that's a good thing. But that is key to saving a lot of time, because we are able to just go through it, mark them off, and then delete them on the back end, and the cuts are already have been implemented, comparative to actually having to go there and do like ripple cuts between each one and listen to it. It takes a lot more time to do it in the antiquated manner, and using these devices now really can save you a lot of time. So I highly recommend it, because as I always mention, time is our most precious commodity. But we've gotten through the chat. I'm gonna now go ahead and mention Cities Golf. Let me go ahead and change this. Channels I think you should go and watch. Cities Golf. And today, let me see if I can get this right. You know what? I'm going to go right back to that same edit scene. I'm going to take Final Cut Pro and we're going to minimize you. Boom. Move me over here. There we go. There we go. Parker Walbeck, also known as the full-time filmmaker. This dude is actually not just himself. That's what the YouTube channel is named. But as you can see, he's got quite an extensive team. But this person is someone that I really think that if you haven't, you should definitely go check out if any of this is of interest of you. Because whether it is that you're looking to start like your own production company, or something as simple as like you see like a video that they have like judging your videos, you know, because they specify on the differences between gear, programs, different types of editing techniques. And this is why it's basically called the full-time filmmaker, because they are covering all the aspects when it comes to this. It could be as simple as you want, or as extensive as you want. You can all find it here. And if you want to take it to the next level, then they also have like packages and, you know, like different courses that they're able to provide, one-on-ones. Just a channel that I follow. Like, this was a great video from 2 months ago. It says one-man crew versus a 10-man film crew. Really good information there on how to value your time and how to do a lot of the things that we aspire to do with our channels. So if you haven't checked that out already, him and his team, definitely check out Parker Walbeck and the full-time filmmaking crew. I highly recommend it. A lot of great content. Yeah, a lot of great content. So that's Cities Golf for this week. And let me go ahead and check this. It goes, Parker's stuff is super clean. It is. I'm not sure if that even came up. Okay, so now I'm going to do this. Oh, did I have the Cities Golf logo the entire time over it? That's what happens when you're using the Stream Deck for 3 different programs at the same exact time. Okay, so let's bring it back just so you can get a better view. That's the channel. And this is the video that I was highlighting because most likely it was under the lettering. So the 1-man versus a 10-man crew, really good video. So many of these videos that I've seen, but like I said before, good crew, great content. You could learn a lot, so I highly recommend watching this channel. And we'll bring it back. Cities Go. Channels that I think you should go and watch. All right. And that is it. I want to thank you all, as always, for taking the time to hang out with me. Once again, this was episode number 83. So 83 weeks. Yes. 83 weeks. Week 84. My God. Next Saturday, we're going to keep things going, as always. Gonna be here 11 o'clock. Gonna try to keep it to an hour, even though this one ran long, but I feel that there was a lot of value that was implemented, and we're gonna take the next step in this video editing process next week. So I hope that you can join me once again. I want to thank my moderators for holding it down. As always, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you all for hanging out with me and taking your time hanging out in the Camera Junkie live stream. We're going to do it all over again next week. So, as I always like to say, take care of yourselves and